And for more on this, we're now being joined on the broadcast by Edward P. Joseph. He's a senior fellow at the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies. He's also a former U.S. Army helicopter pilot and foreign policy analyst. Thank you so much for making time for us and joining us on the broadcast, Edward.
Good to be with you.
Now, there's a mix of cautious optimism, but also very clear threats from President Donald Trump after the last round of talks in Islamabad failed. Now, from where you sit, what could realistically be different this time around? And does the Israel-Lebanon ceasefire change enough on the ground to give these talks a better shot, according to you?
Yes. Well, first of all, I think everyone should be impressed and encouraged that these talks are continuing. You know, there's been a lot of negative talk about the talks, saying that they collapsed. Well, this is proof that that's not true. They ended inconclusively after marathon talks, again at extremely high level, and now they're continuing. So this is encouraging. This is encouraging. This is a demonstration that both sides, Iran and the United States, take these discussions quite seriously. Now, of course, there are very difficult issues to resolve, but there's been so much skepticism and negativity saying, oh, it's impossible to discuss anything with the Iranians except over a period of months and so forth. But we see that it appears that there's been progress, including on some of the main core issues that have bedeviled the relationship for years, which is enrichment. Iran's demand for the right to enrich uranium, which of course presents a serious potential for making a nuclear weapon. And reportedly, there was progress, and the difference is about the number of years over which Iran would suspend enrichment. And even the former lead negotiator for President Biden acknowledged that if the United States obtains an agreement by Iran to suspend enrichment, that this would be an improvement over the 2015 JCPOA agreement negotiated under President Obama. Please.
Now, let's also get into finer details of this hard part, the deal breakers, which we're discussing here. We know that nuclear enrichment, it still remains a red line that we've just discussed, and the situation around the Strait of Hormuz is, of course, escalating. Now, do you also see issues like war-related damages or reparations also featuring prominently in the talks this time around, and what other hurdles could emerge according to you this time?
Well, you know, it's an excellent question that you ask, and we have not seen reports that the demand for reparations is a major element or key sticking point. On the financial side, the immediate demand is for release of Iranian funds that have been held in banks in various countries in the world. And so there could be a release of Iranian funds, but I have not seen reports of reparations. With respect to the Strait of Hormuz, of course, you've nailed it. That's extremely serious question, and one in which there's been apparent discord within Tehran about the position. The Iranian foreign minister, had apparently agreed that the Strait of Hormuz would be open in the wake of the first round of Islamabad talks. And then that was contradicted within Iran by the IRGC, who said no such, that there is no opening, and subsequently 2 tankers have been attacked. But what we have not seen is significant Iranian response, military response to the U.S. blockade of the Strait of Hormuz on the other side, the blockade of Iran, all Iran-linked vessels that would emerge or even try to attempt to get in through the Strait of Hormuz. And we have not seen Iran respond in a significant way to that blockade, which costs Iran significant amount of money, reportedly some $340 million per day. Please.
And speaking of the contradictions there's also some uncertainty around who's actually showing up, because Donald Trump has said that a team led by J.D. Vance will be there, but Iran hasn't confirmed its participation yet. That's one. And there's also reports that J.D. Vance himself may not be traveling this time due to security concerns. What do you make of these conflicting claims at this moment?
I'm not aware of the conflicting side of this. Here in the United States, the report is that it will be the same lead negotiating team led by the U.S. Vice President, J.D. Vance. And I understand the Iranian side will again be led by the Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Ghalibaf. So I'm simply not aware of that and don't see the purpose in some jockeying about the level of participation. I think the key question here is on the Iranian side is whether there will be IRGC, senior IRGC representation at the talks, so that we do not again end up in a situation where apparently the political side, in the previous case, the Iranian foreign minister agrees and announces an agreement on the Strait of Hormuz, but this is then overturned by the IRGC. Please.
Noted, Mr. Joseph. And another hard question which needs to be answered at this moment is, of course, what happens if, this round doesn't deliver? We've already heard very strong warnings from Washington, which very comfortably amount to war crimes. Do you see those threats actually translating into action if the ceasefire expires without any breakthrough?
Well, I think those, if you're referring to the latest threats by President Trump to hit bridges and power plants,
right,
that is not the same as his prior threat before the ceasefire to erase Persian civilization, which, of course, the latter certainly would amount to a war crime. The former, in the current question, the threat to hit bridges and power plants, is a different question as to whether that would amount to a war crime. The administration's representative to the UN, Mr. Waltz, Ambassador Waltz, stated that this would not amount to a war crime because these have dual use. In the 1999 NATO strikes on Serbia, bridges and other infrastructure of Serbia was hit.
But either way, Mr. Joseph, do you
Please.
think that Donald Trump would actually make good on these claims, even hitting the bridges and power plants? Because that also puts civilian lives directly in the sight of fire here.
I think the threat to strike infrastructure that has dual purpose, I think that's a plausible threat. Now, with respect to hitting civilians, it depends on whether there's adequate warning that is given in that. So intentionally hitting civilians, of course, is a war crime. You can't do that. Hitting structures that have a legitimate military purpose under the laws of war is not a war crime. Please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph, for joining us on the broadcast and sharing your perspective with us. We'll be watching how this unfolds very closely.
You're welcome.